Good to go. Yeah.
Good to go.
Yeah, good to go. 3
Back.
seconds in.
3 seconds in.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about coffee, but first we wanted to thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And please make sure to, subscribe, make a comment,
Mm-hmm.
give us some feedback, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
We always get back to
Sure.
the people that get to us. Every single
The
one
problem
time
is there's no comment.
there were some comments at one
The
point.
other day, just literally a word that does not make any sense by this Korean little Korean kid. Heek. I think that's supposed to be laughing, but I don't know exactly what that means. Listen,
we're a big hit with the
I was
kids.
born and raised in Korea, and I did not understand what it was saying, or rather, wrote down. But I don't think it is any hostile, at least. So I think it's all good. I think he's one of our 47 subscribers.
Probably one of our biggest fans.
Yeah,
He probably can't even speak English, doesn't even know what we're talking about.
exactly. Well, these guys are cool.
But on the topic of coffee, we
Right.
actually just released our first batch.
Yeah. It's called the Theory of Living coffee. How much did we produce?
We did
I mean, we're
400
that.
pounds, right?
400
so
pounds,
it's
okay.
about 528
Right.
bags worth of coffee at 12 ounces a
All
bag.
right.
So we've got that on Amazon, and
Mm-hmm.
it's our first test run. So
Yeah,
we want to do a more robust blend
Mm-hmm.
next time, and work with the people that are producing the beans, the roasting. We use
Yeah.
the middleman here, so
Mhm.
there was an involved process,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like we were going to the farm,
Yeah.
looking through the beans, talking to the actual farmer, which is something we mentioned many episodes ago that we have an
Mhm.
interest doing with particularly Hawaii, because we were just
right.
so blown away by their beans and the roasting.
I know.
It's like
Yeah,
totally
there hasn't been anything like
unique.
this so far. Honestly, to me at least. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't know about you, but we've tried a lot of different beans. Even in Thailand. I mean, we're very impressed by the quality here. The baseline quality is very high when it comes to coffee. Not just the beans, but how they make it. Very a lot of care goes into it. I was very impressed. Because again, we kind of avoid to use the word third world country. It's a developing country, I mean, in comparison, right? But the quality of coffee was not something I was expecting for sure from this country.
No, I mean, me either.
Yeah.
Which is strange, because last time I was here, it was 2017. And I drank coffee at that point, but I guess I didn't have as much of a defined palate at that point, so I didn't really even think anything about the coffee. To me, coffee was just coffee. But now,
Right.
having a much more deeper love and passion for it,
Mhm.
it's very easy to tell when you have a good cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And like you said, most places here, even though
Mm-hmm.
you'd be shocked to think you're going to get a good cup of coffee,
Mm-hmm.
you end up pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
But I think what you were talking about with the Hawaiian coffee, it's almost unique in the way that kind of like an IPA of coffees.
Right.
There was like floral notes and very minor acidity,
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of bitterness, and it was just pretty refreshing to get that in a cup of coffee, because
Yeah.
I think for most people, drinking coffee is like drinking this horribly bitter,
Mm-hmm.
kind of nasty
Right.
sludge.
Yeah.
And that was just not the experience when you have a different bean, specifically the Hawaiian ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why they use, heavily sugar, cream, milk, all this. Even espresso is more acidic, but it doesn't have to have the bitterness or unpleasant flavors. I mean, espresso can be strong, but very tasteful at the same time, enjoyable. I mean, that's the difference, right? That's where we draw a line between shitty coffee and a good coffee, quality coffee.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, this whole scene, the coffee scene that we are very familiar with today, has been only like a century or so. So that's really interesting to think about, because like we're from America. I mean, I'm from originally Korea. I remember my like it was all after the war, man. The introduction of Spam, the American cultures and chocolate bars and things like that. They're all introductions from war. You know, because all like there were U.S. military bases, you know, in all countries in Asia, in Japan. That's why they eat Spam as well. I mean, Japan is by any means a poor country, but they eat Spam for that reason. It's a cultural thing.
Yeah,
they adopted it, after the World War II and during World War II, so 1950s, right, 45. And coffee is sort of the similar thing. So in Korea, I remember watching movies and TV shows set back in 50s and 40s. They didn't have word for it. They didn't have a word for it. They didn't know what to call it because we had never seen it before.
Wow.
So they literally called bitter water, bitter drink. That's how we called it in the 50s and 40s. We didn't have word for it. We didn't know what it was. You know, we kind of knew what it does. Like, oh, you're kind of awake. It's better. But it was rich people's trait, not ordinary people.
Not affordable for most people. No. It's funny. I mean, talking about the etymology of the word, actually it borrows from a lot of origins. I mean, coffee was coffee from the Dutch. Yeah. And this is Wikipedia. I'm not an expert, right? So then. Ottoman, the Turkish Empire, they borrowed from the Arabic, which actually was derived from a word that was
vigorous.
Yeah, vigorous. And then there was another one. There was a verb attached to it, I believe it was qua, but it essentially translates to lack hunger, a lack of hunger, referring to the.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, referring to the effect, obviously, that you have.
Yeah. Huh. Did not know that.
So it's very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of. When you get that far, and that's not even that far back. When you get back 15th century, there's a lexicon and people that particularly study this types of things, scholarly field to try and understand the vocabulary and the dictionaries and link them all together. But it's very interesting that even the word we're using translates directly to how it affects us and what its actions and its properties are. I don't know. I don't hear words very much and think oh, that word, we use it because it actually means something. Right. Like a physical action or a physical effect from it. It's very interesting.
Right. I mean, I guess it was because apparent to, I think one of the origins theories is that in one of the Arabic countries, this guy saw his lamb or sheep took a bite of coffee bean, and then wouldn't go to sleep entire night. That's one of the theories. I think what's so interesting is that even though the coffee hasn't been around that long, we don't have clear origin. That's the craziest part to me. We're not talking about 4000 BC Egypt. We're talking about fucking 15th century, and we don't even know the origin of it. It's kind of crazy to me. We even know the secret chamber in a fucking pyramid. You know what I mean? That was built literally 6,000 years ago. Now we don't know the origin of coffee that happened about 6 centuries ago.
Yeah, I guess
that's crazy.
I know. It seems like the easiest thing they can do is just basically say, when it's popularized based off trade. That's typically, it seems like, how they link to say, 15th, 16th century. We started actually exporting, trading coffee, whether it was through Yemen or specific regions, and it became one of these things that people consumed, but not like we consumed. Yeah. Actually, one of the first groups of individuals that consumed coffee that we're aware of were, Islamic, the Sufi, Suffi. I think that's how you pronounce it. And they would do it for the effects to stay awake or Ramadan, prayer and things of that nature. Yeah. And then that was also, funnily enough, met with some controversy because it was haram, so forbidden because they compared it to potentially alcohol.
Right.
right? So it was actually banned at some point,
Right.
and then re-legalized. And there was this back and forth, and there was coffee houses that were developed, and then now there's some attribution that actually coffee was a gift from God given by Archangel Michael. Came to Muhammad and said,
Yeah.
"Oh, coffee here. This is in the place of basically wine, because you can't drink
Right.
wine
Yeah.
in Islam." So that was seeing that history and hearing it is incredibly interesting, because I think for the average person, at least in Western civilizations or places that are further removed from more Islamic belief and that kind of structure, don't realize this is tied very strongly into those religious roots.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of like religious attributes. And it's
Yeah.
very, very cool to see and kind of refreshing to have a bit of an idea of the history surrounding coffee.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Because I think most people think coffee, oh yeah, Italian. You know, that's all you think, or you just think Europe.
Well, yeah, because the largest portion of the element of coffee today, coffee culture today, is espresso. I think that's why we largely attribute it to Italians. But surprising enough that even French press, I thought like this is older than espresso, but no, it's actually younger.
Wow.
I know. The original espresso machine was invented in 1884, so almost right after the first industrial revolution, which makes sense, right? Because you use high pressure, high temperature, right? Up to like between 1 to 9 bars. There's a high pressure, so you need to have that. I mean, basically espresso is, you can say that in that sense, the direct result of the first industrial revolution, right? I mean, without the first revolution, then you wouldn't have
how
an
would
espresso. Yes, but anyway, 1884, the original invention, which was iterated many times for improvements, but French press came along in 1907, something like that. It's
almost 20 years later.
It's a newer invention than espresso machine.
Wow.
I was very surprised too, because this is all mechanical, right? I mean, there's nothing about. This is just a pot event essentially. So I was very surprised to know that French press came along later than espresso machine.
There's a lot of interesting things like that. I'm sure you've heard the same thing with, matches and then a lighter.
Yeah.
You would obviously think, oh yeah, matches, of course, more primitive. But it was a lighter that came first, a piece of flint. Yeah, a lighter first.
Huh.
Because a match, is coated, it's a chemical, and you have a reaction based on that. So
right. It's more primitive, I guess, lighter.
Yeah, but you would think,
other than the content
somebody
of
asks
oil.
you, immediately to your head, you would just be like, oh, of course the match came first.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, really?
Yeah.
But similar situation. I actually didn't know that about the French press either. I guess the primary brewing method for the longest time must have been pour over.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. There was just a book written by I'm sorry, I forgot the gentleman's name. But he wrote this book, prominent book about coffee history. And he categorizes the Northern Europe of more pour over, drip coffee, and Southern Europe is more espresso. That's how it categorizes North and South of Europe.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Was there any
traditionally?
Did he find any reason why that was the case? I mean, southern climate, I imagine, is warmer, but I can't see. It'd be hard to make a correlation, I guess. But did he arrive to a conclusion?
I don't know. I've never read the book, but I guess there are the primary methods, brewing methods, right? I don't know exactly why. I don't know why, but I just assume that those are the longest and most reliable method, because now you take a French press mocha. I think a mocha pot, and that was pretty late too. So you're looking at just drip coffee, or actually if you go to some Arabic countries, I think they put just like coffee, ground coffee, and just hot water.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't even have a filter.
if I'm not mistaken, that's very similar to a Turkish coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Turkey's, yeah, exactly. So you just drink it, right?
Mhm.
So if you look at the old methods, it's basically just hot water and coffee ground, right?
Yeah.
So there isn't much if you take out French press, mocha pot, and espresso machine. I mean, it's just hot water and coffee,
methods, right?
right?
Just trying to extract the flavor.
Yeah, just actually an extension of that discussion is the like brief history of American coffee culture. So after World War II, just like any other country, they started drinking more coffee, but all that up to like 70s and 90s, the primary brewing method was to use percolator. Percolator that has that uses basically hot boiling water, goes through a small chamber that has coffee grind. So for that reason, it relies on hot water. Therefore, the quality of coffee isn't so great, because now we all know that even espresso, yes, we use high temperature and pressure, but nearly boiling water. Well, there's a huge difference. I exactly don't know what's happening chemically, but by now we all know that we don't use actual boiling water for.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends on the brewing method, but yeah, like hot boiling water isn't, I guess, good. I'm not a coffee expert, but.
Wait, you're not a coffee expert? We start a coffee business and you're not? Oh my God.
I mean,
We're
near
never
expert, okay? Near expert. But I mean, well, I guess I can, start to look into all those, the details, but the percolators did not make a good quality coffee for their reason. And then that was the main brewing method for Americans for a long, long time. So actually they call 40s and 50s not, wait a second. So, up to the point where the European coffee culture started bloom in America after World War II. That period they call the dark age of American coffee.
Wow, we have a dark age.
Yeah.
American history, it's so rough, There was a time where we didn't have good coffee, didn't know how to make it, use it.
It's crazy to think that even in New York City, in 70s up to even 90s, early 90s, you wouldn't find like Italian espresso bars.
Wow, that seems very hard to imagine.
I know. There were, the oldest one is, I think, Cafe Reggio in New York City, and that's the oldest one since like 50s or 70s, something like that. So a lot of artists used to go there, like even Hemingway in Paris. Yeah, there were several places, like few places they used to go, right? I mean, I used to go, I've been there, one of the, it was not a cafe, well, I guess it's sort of a cafe, but close to Moulin Rouge. There's a little restaurant. I went there like 6 a.m. in the morning. I was so excited. Ooh, Hemingway. I used to eat there, man. I was so excited. I went there too goddamn early, hour before opening. And that's when I met those gentlemen. You remember?
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah, there were two French guys were headed to this red light district or Sacred. I don't know, but
6 in the morning, by the way. Think about that.
After a big party, I guess. They suggested that, oh, where from, like, you want to go together? Best sex in France? I'm like, no, I'm good, man.
You're like, I'm just looking for the coffee.
But the Cafe Reggio was one of those places, the famous artists, and, all those people used to hang out there because this is one of the few, like one of the only, I guess. And then sort of like that expanded to more and more European coffee shops started opening in America, but first in California and New York. New York, I think, was the first, like, the city and a state.
I mean, it makes sense. Also just being a port, right?
Yeah.
And immigrants, exactly. So you just have the access to all these different cultures.
Yeah, 100%.
Obviously can get access to the supplies to do it as well.
Right.
And then just a huge industry in regard to, like, people are industrious there.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for a way to make money.
True. That's a good point,
tradition.
actually. The culture, right? I mean, that has nothing to do with the coffee itself, but the industrials the part of the culture, right? People are so busy all the time, you know, they're hustle. So like espresso is like, it's like that, right? I mean, the quickness, but it's also effective. Like I think that's the characteristics of the espresso.
Yeah.
So like Italians, for example, they don't drink espresso in the morning. Like they drink cappuccino. That's more like a morning coffee. Cappuccino. I mean, it has espresso haters, okay? I'm talking about the espresso itself.
Yeah.
So they in the morning they drink a cappuccino with a pastry. Typically, I mean, we love to do it, even though we do intermittent fasting at normal times. But when we don't, like that's my
Go-to.
Yeah,
It's definitely the go-to.
but that's what they usually do. Cappuccino. Espresso is more like after dinner or during the day, something like that. When they need some extra boost, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know why I started saying that. Well, yeah, in relation to New York culture,
industriousness
right?
of it.
A lot of immigrants, hustling, and all that.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
I mean, it's hard to imagine now the world without coffee. It's so mainstream, so essential. I think most people are addicted to some type of caffeine. Maybe it's not caffeine. Maybe it's not coffee, but majority of people, at least in the U.S., take some form of caffeine, whether it's energy drinks, coffee, chocolate. Granted, that's a very small amount, probably negligible amount of caffeine, but it does really give you that boost and that little bit of perk that's so nice. And I mean, you and I, every morning starts the same way. Coffee.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the best way to start your day, almost ritualistic when you're even preparing it. There's something just very satisfying about the preparation. Yeah. And again, I mean, we just do French press, so it's pretty straightforward, very simple. Nothing difficult, but it makes a good, consistent type of coffee every time. You know, of course, depending what beans you're using and which roast. Yeah. But even if I wasn't going to drink coffee, I think I'd still enjoy the process of waking up, boiling water, waiting for it. We have a kettle here, which is nice because it's so much quicker.
Electric kettle, yeah.
I'm so used to just boiling water on the stove and you know, wait and looking. It
literally like 10 times slower than electric kettle.
It's crazy how slower it is.
So slow.
Yeah.
But kind of finished the early progression of coffee culture in America because it's really short. So like the European style coffee bars started open around California and New York. And the reason I'm saying this is they're kind of interesting to see. The lineage is very small, like thin. That's what I'm getting at. So like Cafe Regi, what was that name again? I think totally forgot. Yeah, Regino.
I don't know how to pronounce
Reggio. I'm sorry. Yeah, Cafe Reggio. And others, and then you would see Pete's Coffee. Now you know Pete's.
Oh yeah, very familiar with Pete's.
Originally, that was in California as well. I think in San Francisco, in the 70s, and I was somewhere there. And this guy was Dutch. He founded the company, and then the more interesting story out of this is that yes, there was sort of like the first, the next tier in terms of size and everything of European style coffee bar. But there was a regular to that coffee shop, and the gentleman was enthusiastic regular to the Pete's Coffee, and he was the founder of Starbucks.
I was just about to say, I bet you anything.
So that's why they adopted these words like, you know, the words that ended with to, chino, like mochaccino, frappuccino. Those words don't exist in Italy. Those are all made up names, but they wanted to like mimic the names of Italian coffee. They put like to, chino, whatever. They just put those words to whatever they're making.
Wow, pretty smart marketing,
like Italian,
right?
But it's not.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that. That's crazy marketing because
it's kind of funny.
I literally had no idea. And then that was what, I guess, the 80s for Starbucks when they started, or they started in the 90s, right? Early 90s,
70s, I think.
Oh, Starbucks was. Wow.
I think so.
They've been
but,
at it for a while. Pike's Place.
The rise of it was, I think, I would say, all the 90s. Yeah.
I mean, you can't go anywhere in the U.S. without finding a Starbucks now.
I mean, that's when we started to see a lot of Starbucks commercials in movies, and right? That's the 90s, right? I mean, the 80s movies don't really show Starbucks.
No,
but it's like 90s movies.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a cultural epidemic.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like I said, when I was in the military in 2000, between 3 and 5, I read this book called Blue Ocean. I mean, still used in business and in economy. Blue Ocean refers to untapped market. Basically, that's what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You need to tap into untapped market instead of saturated market. And one of the great examples that book used, along with other companies I forgot already, I think it was Intel or IBM, was Starbucks. Like, big portion of the book was dedicated to Starbucks. And they were talking about why Starbucks was so successful. Now we know a little bit better because of the history of coffee in America. Because, the quality of coffee wasn't that great, the baseline. The people didn't even know what good coffee means.
Yeah, I mean, coffee was diner coffee, right?
Yes. I mean, still, that's American coffee, isn't it?
I mean, I'm never going to turn my head up to diner. Yeah, when I go to a diner, I expect to get diner coffee.
Yes. Yes, the quality of coffee, objectively speaking, is trash in comparison, but I love that culture, man. I mean, it's so unique. Yeah. It's like an unlimited coffee, right? Basically.
Yeah.
Watered down.
It's completely watered down. It's been sitting in that pot that's never been washed all day, and
there's some comfort from it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Culturally, right?
I mean, we were talking about this earlier. Yeah. I was saying that the idea of a cup of coffee and a cigarette outside on the porch, or that kind of like diner room atmosphere. I don't even smoke cigarettes, but to me, there's a really big sense of romanticism attached to that.
Yeah.
And I think that imagery is so, again, probably from the 90s and even the 80s, there's a huge scene that you see over and over again. Somebody smoking a cigarette and having their coffee. And I also grew up. My mom, she smoked and drank coffee, and she told my dad all the time, "John, don't talk to me until I've had my first cigarette and my cup of coffee." Because my dad was so annoyed.
Oh my god, dude! I've never known that.
Yeah, and you know my dad, so you're totally good.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the power of coffee right there.
That's the most gangster shit I've ever heard. Don't talk to me until I get my first cigarette and cup of coffee. You understand that?
She's serious about it, too.
Holy shit. That's crazy. Oh my god, it's 28 minutes in.
28 minutes? Oh my goodness, this is flying by.
So, a lot of things have changed. One of which is to actually properly end our free short version. Previously, we did not. Caused a lot of confusion, I heard. So we decided to put an end mark to our free short version every time. So thanks for listening. This week's free short version is a little longer than intended.
Our typical is one.
Yeah. But... you want to take over? I forgot that.
If you've got any, again, like we mentioned at the start, please like, subscribe, make some comments, and if you want to hear the full version, that's usually about 3 times the length of this one. Yeah. Well, not this episode, but they're about an hour. We're going to be a little loose-ended, a little more free-form with the Patreon members. Language slack up a little bit, chill out. The way cooler version. If you want to come join us on the cooler version, you can check out our Patreon page. Subscribe as little as $5 a month. Get full access, and we appreciate it, and it helps support us. So please just leave any feedback, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. So let's kick it back to the Patreon one now, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, guys. Bye.
We're back to our Patreon members. We're talking about coffee. I've let my hair down. I've relaxed. Now I don't have to be so formal. I can curse. I can say
you did
bad
not.
words like poop and butt.
How dare you?
Who do I think I am?
Degrading the quality of this show.
Yeah, well, they're paying for it, so. You Patreon members out there support this bad habit.
So we're talking about coffee. I don't know how much. What was the last thing we talked about? Who cares? This is for Patreon members.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say that. Oh yeah, we're talking about Starbucks. Starbucks, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it a little bit more, right? I mean, I guess you can say that Starbucks was a pioneer. I think we can certainly say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It changed the coffee scene entirely in U.S. But currently, I don't guess it has the same, reputation
That once held.
they used to,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right?
What do you
When
think
they-
that is?
So I think, like you mentioned just previously, Blue Ocean Market.
Ocean Market.
When you're the first one in there, you're going to be badass because you have nobody to compare yourself to.
Right.
So something that's new like that, exciting, these tastes you haven't had before, of course you're going to think this shit is like good as bread.
Yeah.
It's going to be the newest, freshest thing for you. But when you have more competitors coming in the industry, you get a little more niche, a little more refined, then you're not going to stand out as heavily. And I think that has happened. And again, because they have to be profitable and compete with these other places, I think quality more than likely goes down.
Yeah.
Right? So you have all these other smaller coffee shops pop up, these different roasters, these different blends, and you run into a huge variety of coffees. So Starbucks to me is basically the Miller Lite or the Bud Light. It's like the basic beer.
Yeah.
It's the basic coffee. You know what you're getting. It's not bad. It's not horrible, but it's not going to blow your mind.
Right.
They had the early
Right.
adoption
Yeah.
or adaptation to the market, and that's why they're so successful, I think.
Right. Initially, one of the few factors that that are attributed to their success was the high quality coffee, right? I guess you made a really good point that, yes, it used to be. Their quality used to be great, compared to all the other coffees. But today, there are so many private, like small coffee roasters and farmers that they know what they're doing. And their quality have exceeded, actually, that of Starbucks. I think we can say that because...
Yeah.
Like you said, even today, we always try to go to find, when we're in a new place, try to find a good coffee shop, right? Because a lot of times, not in Thailand, I think, but a lot of times in U.S., all the local coffee shops, most of them use their own coffee.
Yes.
So I think, man, U.S. coffee quality is so great, if you think about it actually that way. Because if you have to compare, because there are kind of matchless twin stars, right? Italy and US, I think, when it comes to coffee, that as Italian coffee culture is characterized by, I think, just one word: espresso. That's it. But American coffee culture is characterized by, I think, more than that. I think the biggest one is probably specialty. I think we are so familiar with the concept today that specialty coffee, right? The roasters, even in Austin, man. There are local coffee shops, very small businesses, but they, roast their own coffee in a special way. They have very special taste flavors to it.
Yeah.
I don't think those are the things will be easy to get to in Italy, for example, or any other European countries.
Probably not. No.
So, the quality of those, non-franchise coffee shops and coffee roasters in America are so high today that it's more than just speed and quantity that used to be the characteristics of American culture, coffee culture. But today, it's more than that. It's just they actually shoot for specialty flavors
Yeah.
and quality, right? I mean, that's why
Yeah.
we know so many great coffee shops in America. Almost any city you go, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're definitely right about that. And then people are also just slowly trending towards more the
Mm-hmm.
mom and pop shops and wanting to help local
Mhm.
businesses. I think there's definitely a shift in the U.S. culture and
Mhm.
consumerism to want to support these industries and
Yeah.
these types of people
Mhm.
rather than throwing your money at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. That's they're going to survive regardless of you spending money.
Right.
We want to be able to go to somebody who's local
Mhm.
and doing the work themselves to pay for that cup of coffee. And then there's
Mhm.
also the huge ethical concern. If you're buying coffee
Mm-hmm.
and it's cheap and affordable, it's
Yeah.
probably slave wages for those people. These
Yeah.
farmers are probably being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
The beans are being bought at like egregious prices,
Mhm.
extremely low. It's unsustainable, and that's why you can buy the Starbucks coffee at
Yeah.
that price point. And again, I'm
Right.
not saying maybe necessarily Starbucks, but a lot of these other coffees.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go buy a 12-ounce bag of coffee or a pound of coffee, if you're paying less than $20,
Yeah.
you're probably buying
Yeah.
coffee that's not sustainable and that people are not making money. And I say people as in the farmers.
Right.
They're not making a livable wage
Somebody's
off that.
compromised.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
hugely.
Yeah.
And I think so right now there's an ethical shift again
Mhm.
in the US as we become more and more aware of these problems
Mhm.
that people are willing to spend more money for ethically produced coffee
Right.
that's sustainable and actually, goes back to the farmers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the aim in the coffee that we seek to produce,
Mhm.
especially, the next batches.
Right.
Like we've talked about, we want, even specific amount of money to go back
Mhm.
for, we'll mention it down the road, for other groups
Yeah.
and causes and supports that we believe in. So, I mean, it's a huge thing you got to think about when you're buying this coffee
Mhm.
or you're going to this chain is, can you really afford that coffee? Like,
No.
yeah, you can afford it financially because it's cheap.
Yeah.
But ethically, can you afford that? I mean,
Yeah.
morally, can you afford that? So it's not an easy decision. We're all addicted.
Yeah.
We're all on the hook,
Right.
and they've kind of got us in that means. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, you should be trying to realize that your money is how you vote, essentially. As if
Yeah.
is it okay for these corporations to take advantage of farmers?
Yeah.
Is it okay that we're doing all this? Because
Right.
we're responsible to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%.
But even in the stores right now, you can go. So what you were talking about, having all these local roasters.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that too, I think, is so we start selling coffee. Obviously, our margins are so bad.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to make
Yeah.
money when you're competing with these other groups of
Yeah.
corporations that, again, can get the beans so cheap, can get the roast cheap. Price
Mhm.
point is super down because they don't pay an ethical wage. So all these other coffee shops that are pop-up, mom and pop shops, they can't even sell their coffee in the store.
Mhm.
They can't afford distribution. They can't afford mass production, right? So they do small batch roasting for all their locals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the cool thing too. When you go to a region, you can go taste these coffees, you can taste
Yeah.
the roast, and it can be so uniquely different than anything else you've
Mhm.
had before.
Yeah,
based off
that's
that.
100%. Yeah, I mean, our big part of, so there are things that, okay, let me go back a little more. I'm just adjusting in my head, but we've been always emphasizing experience, the importance of experience, right? And then one of the things that I value highly when I'm traveling around is coffee, like experiencing your coffee, and along with beer. Those are the two things that I like to try actually,
Mhm.
other than their very popular foods, I guess. Thailand hasn't been a great place, honestly, for beer because we've talked about this many times, but brewing beer is illegal.
Yeah.
The private brewing is illegal in Thailand, so more than 90% of the beer market is dominated by two different companies, Singha and another one. So we haven't been able to try any new beer here. I mean, that's a bummer.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
It's funny that actually. So when I went out last night, with a German girl, I went to go pour the Singha in the glass. It's Singha. I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care how I pour this thing.
Yeah.
It's Singha. And so I poured it straight. And she doesn't even drink. And she was shocked and stunned. And so appalled and offended that I would pour a beer that way. And I was like, listen here. This is a Singha. And I'm not shitting on Singha. It's our favorite here.
Yeah.
But
objectively.
By comparison, it has to be our favorite. If I'm gonna
compare, you need just two things to do a comparison.
Yeah. I'm just saying, the beer here for sure is not good, and that is probably the biggest bummer. Leaving the U.S. as far as the culture associated with eating and drinking, because you and I enjoy food and drinking and coffee, and it's a big part of our experience. No matter where we are, we like to have a good meal and try places, but. A beer can really complement a meal. It can actually shine. It could be the star. And here, you're just not going to get that. So you're kind of already just you have to fall back on. Well, hopefully the food's really good.
Yeah, that has been an unfortunate experience, I think. But another thing is that they're supposed to more than, I would say, 20% of the restaurants that you typically find in Thailand, they're supposed to have imports. But the problem today is that the tourism is dead, that all those restaurants, they have those imports on their menu, but they don't actually have them.
Yeah.
Because they don't need to, because there are not a lot of tourists.
Yeah, nobody's affording. Yeah. Nobody can order them. Nobody can afford them here.
Right.
They can't pay to store those. I mean, things degrade. Even beer, right?
Yeah.
There's specific ways to store it. It can't be exposed to UV light. Type on the beer. Certain temperature, and it's hard. It's hot here.
Yeah.
You think people even have robust freezers or things to keep these cool? No. So they can't keep them. So you're right. There's a lot of times we go in there, we look at the menu, it's oh shit, they got a nice Belgium beer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll take 2 of those. Oh, sorry, no, only Singha.
Very typical. Very typical, right?
It's it's a bummer, but understandable, right? Because the tourism industry is dead.
Yeah. So Patreon members, that was, sort of insider's tip. It's hard to, if you really enjoy or prefer European beers or even any imports in Thailand, it's better to check in advance if you really want to enjoy that at at dinner table.
And then again, realize you're paying your home price. You're paying whatever you pay in euros, whatever you pay in US dollars, you're going to be paying equivalent.
Yes. We had a Duval the other day. It was 250 baht.
Yeah,
something like that. 250 or 300. So it's expensive, man. It's not a cheap beer.
Yeah.
Those
compared to a Singha big beer, which is 100 baht. Yeah. So think about that. I mean,
yeah, I heard that taxes on those are about 60%, something like that. Wow. It's very high. Again, who knows what kind of relation they have, those big beer companies here with the government here and whatever. But it's way of protecting their own brands. Of course, there's a lot of controversies if you want to talk about whether or not you should treat those imports comparably, because that's going to drive free market right in the right direction. But
it'll at least offer more variety to people. And I think that's something we've seen as well. Actually, interesting enough, I think we mentioned this before when we were in the airport, I believe in Chiang Mai. Right, there's that infographic kind of history of the one coffee shop we went to, where they had changed a poppy field, and they started growing beans on it. Right, so instead of being a heroin field, one of the Thai kings had not commissioned, but gone to the farm and then repurposed it to grow beans, and they did that for some time. But I also don't know, even the coffee shops here. How much of it's export versus import, because they obviously have the climate necessary to grow coffee beans here. But there's no I don't know.
But it seems like there are farms, right?
Yeah.
I just don't know exactly how much. I mean, the coffee quality is good again, but I don't know how much of that is imports or not. But I assume that majority of them are domestic, just like beers, right? I mean, there's no reason for them to, especially in this climate, not to farm it.
Yeah.
There's no reason to. And then coffee, compared to other cereals and grains, is relatively easier. What am I saying? I mean, do I really know?
You look like you worked in a rice field.
I mean, but the coffee beans,
racism,
I think, are relatively easier to grow. Pretty straightforward. That's what I'm getting at. As long as you have the right climate, right? Whereas rice could be very complicated, I think, even in the right climate.
Yeah.
But
I mean, at least they get a lot of rain here. That's super important. You know, rice is a very water demanding product. So when was the first time you started drinking coffee? Because I think we were talking about this before. I didn't start drinking coffee till I was like
adult for sure.
Same,
yeah,
to
was
adulthood,
like 20
20s.
maybe, something like that. Because my sister initially, because she loves coffee, and she used to drink black coffee a lot at home. Smoking, obviously, I smoked a ton before. It was a thing. It's just relaxing and enjoying time with my sister. She would make black coffee and and smoke. And we used to do that together. I guess that was the first time. Well, the cigarette though, I mean, I started a long time before that.
Fucking 3 years old over here.
Chain smoking. But it was like 16. It was 15 probably when I started it. And coffee was later, after high school.
Yeah, my parents, they both drank coffee, but typically it wasn't good. It was like Folgers, so it was instant coffee. Yeah. And then again, they would add milk, sugar, basically whatever you would have added that to. I think it's going to taste fucking great. And I was always, my brother liked it, and I was like, even as a kid, I had that kind of, like we mentioned before about you and I, kind of an ascetic type personality where not indulging in sweets. I don't want sugar. I don't want any of these unhealthy things, even as a kid. Yeah. So I was like, nah, I never wanted it. And then when I finally did get into coffee, and again, this was into adulthood, working in the first job in semi, it's like, okay, might as well have some coffee, but black only. Because to me, a man drinks his coffee black. That's the only way you drink it. Which is stupid and silly, but that's how I felt. Like, I'm a man. I'm going to have a man's coffee. You understand me? Right. Fucking black. Nothing else. So, and at first I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. But
you remember the first time when you had it?
Yeah, I remember not liking it. I was like, this is gross. But I also knew it was going to give me energy. The caffeine effect. I was like, okay, that's fine. Because prior to that, done all the lifting, supplement. I'm drinking gross ass shit. Yeah. Whatever. It's going to give me the effect I want, whatever. I can stomach it. I don't care. Right. But coffee, it's like a little bit of Stockholm syndrome, It convinced me to love it. Like, slowly but surely started enjoying it, and then just developed a palate for it. Yeah. And then I could start tasting the differences, depending on the blend I got, or the roast, or the bean. And I really start to appreciate it way more than I ever thought I could. And I always kind of scoffed when people said, oh, it's an acquired taste. You just have to do it to get it. I was like, that's stupid. Wait, you mean I have to drink it to then enjoy it? That seems like I have to, like, trick myself. Yeah. But it really is something that you can really learn to appreciate. Yeah. Especially when you don't throw sugar and milk on top of it.
Yeah, just like a when you try good meat, cut of meat, right? When you know for sure, when you know for sure that it's a good quality meat, that you want to taste the meat, right? Then I don't want to fucking add anything else. I'm just salt and pepper. But if it's a bad meat, that's when I start to fucking marinate it. Not that I fucking love. Don't get me wrong. Some marinated good quality meat exists, and those are fucking expensive. But to me, still, like, there's no reason to do so with a good quality meat. Like, I would do that, like, decent, mediocre quality meat. It's still great. Yeah. Marinate it, right? I mean, because there's acid in it, right? It kind of tenderizes the meat when you marinate it. At least that's how I do it. I use pineapple juice. For
For
pork, especially the relatively rough meat, I use tenderize it in pineapple juice.
yeah.
Few minutes usually. If you go over like 20 minutes, it becomes really melty, almost like. So I don't like it. But anyway, the point is, coffee is like it's the same thing. I mean, if it's really good coffee, then yes, I want to drink it as it is. You know, it's
Yeah.
not that like I'm cool black coffee. It's just like I can actually enjoy the
Yeah.
actual flavor of coffee. Again, like the American coffee culture, the reason they like even Italians, you know, sometimes they would like drink espresso. In their mouth, they have like chocolate, but kind of pour over espresso over it. Why? Because espresso is not good. You know, like you want to add that sweetness to it.
Yeah.
That's
Cut
what
it.
they do. Like if the quality is not good, you want to add something else, right?
Yeah.
To make it. Usually, sugar is the answer to everything, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an implication. The coffee you're drinking, it's probably not a good coffee.
Yeah.
Or again, maybe you need to develop your palate. But there's so many benefits to just drinking it black. I mean, the reduction of calories, sweeteners, sugars, all those other things. Don't get me wrong, everything's fine in moderation, but also just the simplicity. I can go anywhere. We can bring coffee with us anywhere. Camping, hiking.
True.
All you need is
True.
a heat source, something to heat the water, and you just need the grounds.
Yeah.
It's pretty much all you need,
Right.
and you're good to go. So it's really just a sustainable way to enjoy coffee for me.
Yeah, a good point. Good point. I mean, I'm sure there are people who still prefer adding other stuff because, yes, I kind of get the argument that okay, I get your point, but the flavor is exalted when I add this smoothness of milk,
Sure.
another texture, introduction of like contradictory texture and flavor. I kind of get it, you know, because we kind of appreciate that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
like
especially
in
with
foods.
cappuccino as
Yeah.
well. I mean, we indulge in a cappuccino, and you're right, it's a different experience.
Yeah.
I'm going into it again expecting a different thing from it, because what makes a cappuccino really good is like the blend of milk, right?
Yeah.
The foam, like the thickness of it.
Yeah.
So it like again accents and kind of complements each other. The milk complements the coffee like bites away some of the sweetness, and you get this kind of like nice middle ground.
Yeah.
But definitely not something I could do every day. I mean, I could, but I just wouldn't, because I like looking forward to like, oh, I haven't had a cappuccino in a while.
Yeah.
You know, it's like almost like
Right.
a treat. And coffee, so much for us, is more than just it being enjoyable. It's it's utility. You know, we use it for utility.
Yeah.
Midday lull, tired, whatever you need
True.
to work out, like boom,
Yeah.
coffee. It serves us in so many different ways.
Right. So we typically drink in the morning, just like anybody else, right? And then about noon.
Yeah, the afternoon. I mean, it
Afternoon.
depends. Some days we miss it, right? Because we're
Yeah, especially in Thailand, I've been drinking at least like 2 cups of coffee in the morning and then afternoon. When I was in the States, typically I would do 3. And I have like cutoff time of 7 that I know. For sure, if I drink beyond that time, I'm not gonna be able to sleep. I'm gonna have a hard time. Except I smoke weed. That's a different story. Get stoned and go to
Well,
bed
you know
pretty
what? I
quickly.
actually don't- now that you mention that, I don't think I've ever been stoned and drank coffee. I wonder how great that would taste.
I don't know. I mean, everything's great, right? So
Everything's better.
yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But you know, actually, back to your question earlier, when was the first time for me to try coffee? Adult, that was black coffee. I tried a coffee before that because I just thought about this, but in the mid-90s, the concept of cafes was like new to Korean culture, and then like everywhere you go, there were cafes. Like that was the 90s. And then the special thing about those cafes at the time was that because most people have pagers, so you would have like a table, and then there's a phone. So you go in there, you can make a phone call, like, you know, actually, how do you call that? Page someone. and then respond to it, like listen to like a voicemail and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. So there was always like a phone on the table. Now I remember it. And very popular among teenagers at the time. Because this one of the places, along with the PC room, which is PC방 in Korean, where you can play games.
Mm-hmm.
And those cafes were like way out, you know, from stress and parents and all that. So we used to hang out there all the time. The typical thing that you would drink is iced coffee. And iced coffee as in not just black iced coffee, but sweetened. Yeah, so cream and, you know, sugar, so like big glass of cup with ice in it. That was a very typical drink that we would get.
Almost
so now
like a Starbucks one. Wow.
Yes, now I remember that. So I was like 15 maybe when I started, when I tried coffee for the first time. But, you know, again, like we talked about this earlier, like kids like to do what adults do, right? And they think it's cool because they're adults, right? I mean, that was one of the things that we did. And again, it was a cultural thing. It was not like we just suddenly realized that, oh, let's try coffee. It's so cool. It's just those cafes start to open a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the places we could hang out
Yeah.
without.
Easy to indulge in that, right?
Yeah. I remember.
And yeah, one of the, again, you know, when you're young, you try to go to places. So a lot of places that are only open like late at night are going to be these 24-hour diners because they just cater, you know, a lot of truckers, people passing through, whatever. So that's where you would go afterwards. I didn't drink. So I'd always just sitting there having some coffee and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's the shitty diner coffee like we were mentioning before. I love it though. I mean, just thinking about it like brings me so much joy and like it summons all these memories of these good times, like
fucking great
dates or being with friends, you know, just
everything
you
about
know,
it.
this cup and the, oh honey, you want me to top you off, you know, just I'm like,
so
yeah,
nice.
I appreciate that.
There are a lot of things come with it, right? And that experience is more than you just talked about, you know, the Southern or American friendliness, kindness. And, you know, typically go there, you expect to have, you know, big portion of meal, pancakes and fucking typical American breakfast, bacon and eggs. It's just excited to think about, you know?
Yeah.
Even like the quality isn't great. Like as long as the quality is like the baseline, it's great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also like we should remember the baseline quality in almost anything in America is pretty high.
It
right?
is. It is. I'd say that.
Yeah.
I'd say
and
that's the nice thing about America. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. You get a lot of just things that are just mediocre.
Yeah.
I mean, just average as fuck. And I personally don't like that. Granted, there's exceptions and everything like that. But when I'm choosing, you have such a huge ability to go find top end, like great food, great drinks, great everything. If you're willing to go look and search it out. I mean, outside of some of these cities that are more like shopping malls and chains and things like that. But I mean, America really does have an insane amount of variety and huge spectrum. But I think actually one of the things about coffee specifically, why I also it just came to mind to me, why I really, really do like it, is think about how many times you go on dates. Where do you usually go? Like first date?
coffee shop,
Coffee shop, you know?
Right.
Like there's like even an air to it, like romance kind of, you know, the quiet sleepiness, like, oh, new feelings. I don't, you know.
Unspoken expectations, basically. Yeah, true.
I don't know.
Who doesn't like coffee, right? I mean, at least the idea of going to a coffee shop, like, who doesn't like it?
Yeah.
You know,
writing, your journaling, poetry, or, you know, whatever. There's like something really.
Reading.
Yes. There's something so hard to describe, but so satisfying about it. And it's all surrounding this drink.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true.
Would you have a shop like that if you didn't have coffee? I mean, maybe a tea house, but then you would go back to like traditional tea houses. That's not what that's about. You know,
Yeah.
it's the ritual, it's the preparation, it's the
It's
methodical.
definitely a modern thing. It is still ritualistic, I think, because like the things that you just listed, you know, you kind of get excited, you know, like what's gonna happen, you know, a cup of coffee, usually a laptop in the middle, whatever, right? It's still ritualistic that people kind of repeat over and over, but it's less ritualistic, right?
Yeah.
Tea house, you have a lot more. Like, have you been to a Japanese tea
I
house?
haven't been to a Japanese one.
It's
No.
very formal, right? When even though you're there to get their service, is very formal. Like women in kimono walks in with like in short steps, right? Put it down, and then like they don't even actually sit down. They kind of kneel down, right? Because the women sit like that. And then I have to like bow them actually. I didn't know that. I was just sitting like, like a man.
Like
right?
a piece of shit that you are. Yeah, I know.
And then
No
she
respect.
did that, kneel down, and then bow. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do that too. Like, I'm supposed to actually do that, you know? So it's a lot more formal, a lot more ritualistic. But American culture is not like that. I mean, the modern culture is not like that, right?
Yeah. But even our tea houses in the U.S. are still a little more. They're not obviously as stiff as that, but it's not like going to a coffee shop where you're hanging out. You go to a tea house. There's, to me, there's like a little bit level of pretentiousness to it. And don't get me wrong, some coffee shops are so pretentious. Like, I've gone to. There's a coffee shop in Troy actually that people really like. Yeah. But I went in there. I'm like, this is the most pretentious, fucking egotistical, arrogant coffee shop.
Like what?
Yeah. So you go. I mean, you know Troy. It's an older city and it's got like all the the architecture, very warm feelings. But you go in here, it's very modern. There's white brick. Yeah. And very hip. They're trying to sell like $20 postcards. And just they're catering to the Instagram coffee shopper. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, there's people that love that shit. Not hating on them. They just have horrible taste. But yeah, so you go in there and then they offer the specific teas and they have their own names for the types of drink, blah blah blah. And it just struck me as very pretentious. They don't have Wi-Fi. I'm like,
did you ask?
What?
Did you ask why?
No, I mean, it was just people behind the counter, so I didn't ask why. I'll show you when we go there. I just don't like it. I prefer going somewhere that's more kind of traditional in that sense. It's not. They're trying to get people to come to their coffee shop, and that's the feeling I get. Like, oh, you're trying to trying to lure people into your business because your business looks cool, not because it is cool. Okay. That's how I felt. And I mean, Troy, man, like it sticks out like a sore thumb. Yeah. It's like gentrification at its finest is how I felt. Yeah. And again, they're just trying their best, but not my cup of tea. Yeah.
I'm losing the train of my thought. My train of thought.
He doesn't even know how to say the expression.
I was gonna say something about the quality they were talking about. I forgot. I lost it.
Maybe it'll come back after you partake.
A cup of coffee.
A nice cup of Joe.
Thailand, again, the coffee has been here great, but also what lacks is that... the unique about coffee shops here is that even if you order like black coffee or Americano, they would ask you if I want sugar sweeten it. So I was very surprised by that. Yeah, that's not a thing in America. Yeah. Like if you get a black coffee, then black's black. That's it. Yeah. But here you kind of still have to specify after ordering black coffee that I want it sweet or I don't want it sweet. You have to specify.
It could be a little. It's not annoying, just shocking. One thing I will say, I fucking hate cold brew. Okay, that was kind of harsh. Yeah. I don't really like cold brew though. I don't know, man. It's just like coffee is meant to be hot. Even here, when it's 100 degrees basically outside Fahrenheit, it's like crazy hot. Yeah. I'm sweating. I'm like, no, I want my coffee black and I want it hot. that's to me the only way you drink coffee. And I get it. I understand
Yeah.
people want the coffee and the taste
Yeah.
of it, and they just want it cooled off. But when you start throwing ice in it and then it melts,
Yeah.
the concentration, the taste shifts.
Diluted.
I'm not into this. There's only one way to have coffee. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's true for everybody, but
right.
come on, guys.
Yeah.
Hot.
I
Only
mean,
hot.
I typically that's how I drink my coffee as well. But there are days when, Jesus Christ, it's hot as fuck. There are times when I want iced coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I need caffeine though.
Yeah.
That's when I drink it. But yeah, it's rare, but it happens. Yeah, I drink cold coffee sometimes, and it's not a commercial or anything. I tried nitro brew at Starbucks.
Yeah.
I mean, taste is whatever, but the texture was very interesting, very smooth, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I
You
will
want to
say
talk
the
about
nitro
it?
brew. No, so actually at
Uh-huh.
ABP, the Bouldering Project in Austin,
Yeah.
they used to have baked goods right there that they got from a local shop, and then they had on tap
Yeah.
like nitrogen infused coffee.
Yeah.
So I would get that. Right,
Yeah.
it was the only thing right there.
Right,
I'm about to go
right.
work out, climb, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that situation was acceptable, but I would never go to a coffee shop and get a
Right.
cold brew.
Just for it.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Like on the go, on the demand. Yeah, we're going through a gas
Yeah.
station. They don't have a Bang, or their
Yeah.
energy drinks have sugar. Then yeah, I'll take a cold brew.
Yeah. It's
But
better.
if
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit there and have my coffee, I'd rather just
right.
have
coffee.
it warm.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a time and place.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. But also, we kind of didn't talk about this, but very important when it comes to selecting a coffee shop for me, whether or not has good pastries. That's another thing, right? But you in Troy, what's the coffee shop's name? I forgot.
Little packs.
Little Packs. Okay, they have some great breakfast selection, right?
Mhm.
I remember that. I don't want to say great, but good. But across the street, there's this French bakery, right?
Yeah, Placid Baker.
Yes. Awesome. So
Yeah.
I remember when I was there, you said, "Oh, let's just grab a coffee from there and then go to,
Mm-hmm.
the bakery."
Oh,
There's
man.
like a table outside, remember,
Yeah.
right? That bakery right there.
Dude.
One of the best ones I've been in America, at least. In America, if you're not American, like the the level of pastries bakery is not. Can I say this? I mean,
Yeah, you can definitely say
Okay,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
except some certain areas and regions, right? We're talking about New York City, some parts, right? But like typically, the general quality that you get in the States is not so great.
Yeah. Subpar.
Yeah.
You'd be disappointed if you're from
Yeah.
specific areas of Europe
Yeah,
and you
for
come to the
sure.
U.S.
You have to find a good place for it.
Yeah.
But most places are not great. So
No.
I guess there's a winner that Europe wins when it comes to
Yeah. No.
quality of
Hands down.
pastries. Yeah.
I mean, even like here, the bakeries are very
Yeah.
far and few between, but the bakeries we've gone to have been pretty
Yeah.
good.
yeah.
So yeah, the U.S. I think it's just because we don't have a huge culinary institution that's tied
Yeah.
purely to baking.
Mhm.
We just don't have the history, right?
Yeah.
There's not a rich history. So a lot of these places and these bakeries that open up are just
Mhm.
they're people that they were told by somebody like, oh, you bake so well, you should open a bakery. But yo, you should not have opened a bakery. You're gonna go under and be in debt. Like, I don't know who told you that shit, but most people should not have opened their bakeries.
Everybody's a baker, dude.
Dude, everybody's a goddamn baker. I'm like, dude,
In
this
America.
is not good at all.
Somebody told me I'm so good. Yeah. We're not shedding on them, okay?
Yeah,
But
no,
we're just
it's-
letting you know why we think the quality of bakery is so low, and we think that it's just that, compared to, given the short history, we lack, objectively, all those very historical, bakery institutions,
Yeah.
like in Europe, France, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, hundreds of years, right? I don't
Yeah.
know how old they are, but I'm just assuming very old. Well, because we've been using cereal for thousands. I wouldn't say thousands, close to 1,000 years, right?
Cereal, yeah, for a long time.
So, yeah, we don't have simply any history of it.
Yeah, they've cultivated it. Also the grains, right? So
yeah, that for sure. I mean, we've heard that so many times. I think it is true, but I don't know if there's any scientific proof, which I don't think is any meaningful anyway. But the flour in America has been genetically modified so many times that it has more negative effects on health than European flour. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to look, but
yeah, one of the arguments they make is that like French, they eat bakeries, pastries every day, but they're not fat as American, or it's Italy, right? I mean, they eat pasta pretty often, but they're not fat as fat as Americans. I don't know. Maybe there's some arguments there.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot to do with like the genetics, lifestyles, the walking, right? 100%. So if your family's been eating that for thousands of years, hundreds of years, you probably have some like level of tolerance where in the US we see more and more that most people have a gluten allergy, right? So in a lot of these flours,
most people do
have gluten.
Yeah.
So you can't digest it, your body can't make use of it.
Are you saying that glutens are bad?
No. For some people they are.
Kidding.
You listen here right now, young man. I'm about to take this goddamn belt off and beat you on this podcast. Patreon member only podcast.
Your young punk attitude, by the way, won't fly here. I'm letting you know right now. But speaking of gluten free, have you seen any gluten free bread here? I have not.
Huh?
And any
grocery stores. Written in Thai.
No, there's some fucking translations.
Yeah. No, I haven't
seen anything.
I haven't seen anything to it.
Yeah, that's one. I guess another difficulty that we're having in Thailand is that a lot of times we don't know like what's in it.
Dude, I mean, every meal we have, it's like, who knows how much sugar or fucking anything's in this? We're like, why are we gaining weight? We barely eat. The meals are so small, and they're like, oh, it's all sugar. Okay.
We precisely measure with our tongue. Probably 20 grams.
Yeah, about 20.
I mean, we're pretty sensitive to sugar because we don't really eat sugar every day. It's an occasional thing. So, anyway, so we've talked about enough of coffee, I think, and I don't know. Did we cover everything?
Yeah, I think for the most part, for the origin story
and our personal stories, obviously.
And like we talked about, we're going to do more. We're excited to do more with the coffee we have.
Let's talk about our coffee, actually, because, again, our current coffee is sort of our, way of testing the water, right?
Yeah. 100% Arabica, medium dark roast.
It's very high quality coffee, guys.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we selected it,
It's a process. Yeah.
After trying a lot of different things, we that's what we selected. We it's a good quality coffee, man. And we were planning to actually expand our operation on coffee in the future. So if you have tried it, please let us know.
Leave us some feedback. We've heard the smell is exceptional.
Yes.
Taste a little bit too bitter for some people. And again, I think I would agree with that. It was a darker roast, but the next batch we're gonna have a little more experimentation in the cupping process and all that.
So your feedback means a lot to us for next coffee. Well, if you haven't tried it yet, the coffee is on Amazon. The Theory of Living. So you can find it. It's $20 bag, right?
$20 for 12 ounces.
Okay.
And again, I mean, at the price point, it's you can't buy ethical coffee cheap. Yeah. If you're buying cheap coffee, it's probably not ethical.
Right.
And we want the next production batch, again, like we talked about, to be with a farmer we know the ins and outs more efficiently, and a more robust process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is it for this week's episode.
But we wanted to give a shout out to all our Patreon members, call you out by name.
Yeah, 100%.
So we're gonna call you out by your username, so it might be a little bit embarrassing for you, depending who you are.
Yeah.
So first out, Lee, fucking my man, my boy, Lee Ho.
Thank you.
You know who you are. Thank you for your Patreon subscription and membership. We appreciate it. Cass Marie, hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you.
Thank you.
GG1210. Good game 1210. I don't know who you are, but thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca Odell. Again, I don't know who you are. I have a friend, Rebecca, but her last name's not Odell, so thank you, Rebecca. Sins Wolf. I don't know who that is either. Thank you, Sins Wolf. And John Milton. I know who that is. And I think you know who that is too. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And then Lafayette. Oh my God, I signed myself up for the Patreon. Thank you. Pat on my back.
Well,
losing money on that one. That was the test subscription. So he was our first subscriber.
Right. This is, again, the first episode we actually deal with new structures. Basically, I mean, not so different, but we're going to continue thank individual patrons as long as we can, I don't know, I wouldn't say 1,000 is realistic to do. That's going to take us like 2
That'll be the whole
hours.
episode. On this week's episode, we
Name
thank
calling.
the Patreon members.
But we like to do it as long as we can. Thank you for your support always. And your feedback is probably one of the most important things to make the show. I don't want to call the show, actually, our podcast, more valuable to you.
Yeah.
So let us know.
Yeah, we've got a lot of exciting things coming up the road. We'll have to announce, later.
Yeah.
Studio, maybe a location, more permanent type thing.
Right. In the works.
Yeah. And then also check out and leave a comment on the new intro video you made.
Oh, yeah.
Stoked about the music and the style. So
love it.
Spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
So if it sucks, tell them. But if it's good, compliment me.
Because your COVID is bad. Well, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
I think that
Thank
wraps
you,
it up.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you later.